Good evening. I'm calling to order the October 22nd meeting of the Milton School Committee. If we could all rise for the Pledge of Allegiance.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
To start, I would like to offer a moment of silence prior to the meeting for fallen Milton firefighter Danny Thomas, who passed away on October 12th after a courageous battle with occupational cancer. Firefighter Thomas was a 28-year veteran of the Milton Fire Department and a proud graduate of Milton High School class of 1995. Our thoughts and prayers are with Danny's family and friends at this time. So if we could have a moment of silence. Thank you. Our first agenda item is to approve the agenda. One change that we would like to make is, moving up item number 6 to be number 4 right before the superintendent's report so that we can introduce our Milton High School student representative, if everybody is okay. Great. The next item is public comment. Every meeting, in accordance with school committee policy, we welcome members of the community to share their perspectives with us during public comment. We have set aside up to 15 minutes for this part of the meeting, and individuals may speak for up to 3 minutes each. While the school committee does not respond directly to public comment, there may be opportunities for members to address issues that are raised over the course of the meeting when relevant topics are on our agenda. We strive to engage in respectful discourse during our meetings and ask that the public comment speakers keep that in mind. Speakers should introduce themselves for the record. Do we have anybody online who is interested in speaking? If so, if you could raise your hand. Okay, doesn't look like it. Anybody in the, no, so great. Doesn't look like we have anybody here for public comment tonight. The next agenda item is introducing our Milton High School representatives.
Sure. Good evening, everyone. John Phelan, Superintendent of Schools. I'm very proud to ask our student representative, Spencer Futrell, to step up to the big table with the microphone. Spencer is one of our school committee representatives from Milton High School. Spencer is a freshman at Milton High. He is on the freshman football team. And I have to say, before Spencer gives a few words that he will announce tonight related to his role as a representative, when I toured the schools last June, Principal Bill Fish made sure he introduced me to Spencer. Then we had a great conversation in the hallway, and he couldn't wait to get to Milton High in order to be part of this group. So I'm very happy you're here. I'm very proud of you for taking that big leap in being a representative from Milton High at the freshman level. It's certainly a big responsibility, and I think you're going to be great. So welcome and to the school committee meeting, and glad you're here. And please give us your report, Spencer.
Hi, my name is Spencer Futrell, and I'm a freshman at Milton High School. I'm a member of student government, and I'm one of 7 school committee reps from all 4 grades. We meet monthly with Superintendent Phelan and school committee member Bao to discuss changes we can make and ways we can support school committee at the high school. We plan to have at least 1 representative at each school committee meeting this year to give a quick and updated and any field any questions school committee may have. We look forward to working with all of you this year. Some of the current events at Milton High School include Freshman Olympics, fall sports, pep rally planning, fundraising, and student government. Recently held a homecoming dance for juniors and seniors a couple weeks ago. Other than that, we are working on future events and topics to discuss at school committee. Thank you for your time. Do you guys have any questions?
Spencer, can you give the school committee a little bit of insight into the conversation we had with Bao about 2 Fridays ago with the full committee? Some of the areas of interest that people were talking about that day. I think it might have been world language and phones.
We were discussing how the phone policy that they passed would affect us at Milton High, and also if taking how many years it takes to graduate, how many years it requires to take world language.
Right, and we had a good discussion about the pros and cons of that, and everybody had a good opinion of it. So I appreciate you bringing those topics to the attention of Bao and I, and we really look forward to working with you and your classmates, and working with you for the next 4 years. You'll be here for a long time, so I'm glad about that too.
Anyone else?
Spencer, thanks for being a student representative. It's great that you're serving in that role. What prompted you to want to do that?
Well, I originally went big. I ran for class president, and then sadly I lost. But then they still had opportunities for me to be a part of school committee and site council, and I picked school committee because I think that I want to help make a change in the community as much as possible, and I eventually want to be president of the United States of America.
Ooh, my friend.
Love it.
This is a good first step.
Excellent.
Good for you. Awesome.
That's great. Thank you. Anyone else? All right. Well, thank you, Spencer.
Thank you,
It was
Spencer.
great meeting you.
Thanks,
Look forward to
Spencer.
seeing you. The next item on the agenda is the superintendent's report.
Thank you very much. Just a quick overview of some things that are happening in the Milton Public School. We have been doing our work related to learning walks and checking in with our educators and our students and our principals in every building. We finished phase 1 of our learning walks last week at the Cunningham School or at the Glover School. We have been in every school, Carla Koser and I, walking with principals, visiting classrooms, making observations. We take our protocol sheet and check off the things that we see that we are very excited about, like Tier 1 instruction and supporting all learners, using data to inform instruction. All the things that we prioritize at the beginning of the year are on our checklist to talk about it and unpack with the building principal and the staff. I know Carla joins me in saying that every single building that we have gone to and every single classroom we have gone to has been a great experience of really great Tier 1 teaching, which is something that we really feel is our top priority. And it's very, very exciting to see such good work happening in the classrooms. And also our students just amazingly engaged every day. And our principals and our administrators really creating a great environment, which is our 5th priority that we look for in each of the buildings in the classroom. So very thankful for the teachers who allow us in their rooms each week. Our second round will start off tomorrow morning at the high school, and we begin our next round of learning walks. Each round will have a bit more depth, and some of the learning walks in the future will include our Unit B members, so we can take a lens of maybe math or our early literacy program or special education. We want to make sure that we're looking at the district through all those lenses. And I should say that part of our learning walks, I have visited every single sub-separate classroom in the building, of each building and in the district, to ensure that our most vulnerable students are getting what they need in their classrooms as well. So this is all classrooms all the time, all educators, all students. Wanted to let you also know that the fall sports is up and going. We have a freshman football team that is 1-6, but we have a varsity football team that is 6-1. Every actually sport right now is deemed to be a playoff sport. So that's all sports in the fall season are going to the tournament so far, which is fantastic news. We had Swing for Sports last week. The Boosters did a nice job of having their golf tournament at Granite Links. And I went up and thanked the golfers prior to them going out on the course. I also want to let the community know that recently in our outreach to families and parents and staff, I've set up dates for our staff to have coffee hours at every single building. I'll be at each school in the morning over the next 3 or 4 weeks. That schedule went out to all staff via our staff email. And I'll also be hosting community coffee hours that will take place here at Central Office. The first one will be on November 14th from 9 to 10 a.m. The second one will be November 21st from 12 to 1. The third will be November 20th from 4 to 5. And the last will be on December 4th from 5 to 6. So we're choosing different times of the day to give people access around their work schedules. And I also will be going out to PTO meetings at every single building. I'm already booked at the Tucker and at Pierce, and we're awaiting the other 4 schools to find times for me to be out there as well. We tried to do as much outreach as we could in June, and we spent a lot of time doing some good work over the last few months, but now it's time to check in with our stakeholders at the school level and also at the community and the parent level. So we'll be doing that over the next few months as well. Lastly, just a couple of big events happening Friday, October 24th from 5:30 to 7:30. The Tucker Trunk or Treat will take place at the Pierce Middle School. Friday, October 24th from 5 to 6:30 is the Glover Playground Monster Bash and Lantern Walk. Sunday, October 26th is the MFE's Monster Dash. Really like to see great representation out there from our students and our staff to get out and run in costume. And lastly, on November 2nd, which is a Sunday, the Glover PTO Pumpkin Smash composting event will take place. So just a few things that are happening throughout the 6 schools in Milton, and we look forward to folks being out in those areas and at those events to enjoy the students and the families and the staff. So thank you very much.
Will the copies or the opportunities for the community to come and meet with you, will those dates be on the website?
Those dates will be on the website. Stephanie O'Keefe will post them on Facebook, which I do not know how to do because I don't have Facebook, in other media locations as well. So we're trying to get the word out as best we can.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Go ahead, Mark.
I just want to say it wasn't part of your update, but y'all attended Select Board on Tuesday. Really appreciate y'all doing that and representing us well. And then also at the Select Board meeting, again, they talked about the fallen firefighter and that y'all are hosting the celebration of life at Milton High School. And just want to say thank you. That was great.
You're
I know
welcome.
they spoke highly of the school committee. I don't know if other members know, but that was, I think, not deserved of us, but certainly of you and the staff for taking. That's fantastic. So thank you so much for that.
Thank you. Glad to do it.
Okay. So the next item is the field trip approval.
Thank you. So at our last meeting on October 8th, we had Principal of the Pierce Middle School, Bill Fish, discuss and take questions on the 3 trips that are going out of the middle school this school year. At that time, there was some good discussion about how the trips would work. The packets are in your folder again. He went over how the trips would be supervised, what the cost was, the safety issues, the detailed itinerary, the dates and the times, which I think was a good conversation here. Mr. Fish is working with one vendor to do the trips and hoping to kind of consolidate them to one kind of spot on the calendar, which is a suggestion of the school committee, which I think is a great one. But at this point in time, we have one trip to Washington, D.C. for all of our 8th graders. We have one trip for our 7th graders to go to Quebec. And we have another trip for 7th graders for Spanish and Latin to go to New York. The 2 companion trips of the trip to Quebec for our French immersion program and the New York trip for our Spanish and Latin students are an attempt to provide equity and balance with those 2 programs. And the 8th grade trip is something that Bill has been doing for a long time in a way that all 8th graders have access to the trip for that annual 8th grade trip on their last week or so of school before they go up to the high school. So if there's any additional questions that were not answered 2 weeks ago, we would like to take a vote tonight on each one of those field trip proposals.
Were there any questions? No?
Has anything changed in the documents in the folder from last time?
They have not.
Okay.
I'll make a motion to approve. Do I have to list all the field trips? Oh, man. All right.
Yes.
Sorry. I shouldn't have started the motion. I'll make a motion to approve the following field trips. The Pierce Middle School 7th grade Spanish and Latin trip to New York, May 7th through May 9th, 2026. Pierce Middle School 7th grade trip to Quebec City, May 13th through 16th, 2026. And the Pierce Middle School 8th grade trip to Washington, D.C., May 20th through 22nd, 2026.
Give a second. Great. All in favor? Great.
Perfect.
Carries. Thanks, Mark.
The next item on the agenda is our early literacy initiative. Kat DeRoche our early literacy K-8 ELA director, is with us tonight. Wanted to kind of provide some context for tonight's presentation from Kat. One is we should all applaud. She got married last Friday. Big round of applause. Very excited for her and her husband. This is a topic that has been discussed, I think, in the district for a few years. The work is happening and has been going on maybe for a good 6 months at least. And Kat is here to give us a timeline update per the request of the committee. The purpose of this presentation is to give you a timeline of the work that has happened to date, that will happen between now and February, when she will return to this table to talk about the outcome of the work that she's doing with her committee. At that meeting in February, she'll give you an update on what the product is and the vehicle that we'll be using in order to support the ELA curriculum as it relates to literacy. And then she'll be talking about some of the outcomes that we expect related to professional development and how we implement that. So as we met with Amanda and Lizzie earlier in the year, we really wanted to talk about what the purpose was of each presentation that would then guide the school committee in order to what to expect. So it wasn't just a dumping of information, or as much as we can talk about early literacy. We have a very targeted presentation that Kat has worked very hard on. The timelines are very clear, the content is very clear, and you should know that you'll also have a chance to ask further questions when the product is decided upon and the next steps provided on are decided in February. So we appreciate you being here tonight, Kat, and we're going to pull up on the screen your presentation. And I also want to thank the team of folks that Kat has been working with, and also just recently Kyle's involvement in supporting Kat in this work as well.
Thank you, John, and thank you, Carla, for your ongoing support. And thank you to the school committee for having me back. I know I've come to you over the years, and your ongoing support has led us to action this year, which feels really good. And there was reason to be thoughtful, I'll say, over the last few years, but that sense of urgency hasn't left us. And so it's resulted in tonight's information share. So the first slide shows just an overview of the 6 major steps that we're taking in this curriculum review. We did take this process directly from DESE. They share guidance on how districts should examine curriculum, as well as how to adequately invest both time and funding into appropriate implementation. So if you're at all familiar with that process, this will look very familiar. And just before getting into it, whenever I refer to materials, it refers to the publisher materials that are identified as approved as high quality by DESE. So stages 1 through 4 is what has been happening up until this moment. And then, as Superintendent Phelan referred, I will be returning back in February at some point to go over more specifically what will happen in the preparation and implementation stages. So as you see, I'll review a little bit about the committee. But I thought about this a little bit in the 3 buckets of why, how, and what. So it's not just kind of getting a pile of materials and having teachers look at them and decide what they like. We really wanted to front load the why. Mm-hmm. So what are the practices, the evidence, and the pedagogy behind what we do? Why do we do it? What do we know about kids and their learning? And then look at the how. So how are we going to measure the materials based on the why? And then you get to the what. I joked with the committee a couple days ago during a meeting that we don't want to get distracted by the shiny pictures and sort of glossy material. We want to make sure what is selected is really the right thing for us and our students here in Milton. So the committee is made up of 15 staff members across the district representing all grades, schools, and disciplines. You'll see here listed, these staff members have been participating in meetings regularly since June of last year when this committee was formed. They're an outstanding and committed member of educators who are really committed to representing their colleagues well and making sure that we're going to put the best materials in front of students. So as I said, these 15 members represent a large swath of classroom teachers, special educators, reading specialists, as well as administrators. We're meeting roughly monthly, so we're trying to embed our meetings into already existing structures so that we're not pulling always from before or after school, trying to make sure that the time we spend is really well spent digging into the information we need to. Members also solicit input from colleagues in between our meetings and deepen their understanding of what we're talking about between those meetings as well. So you likely noticed that the director of DEIB, F.A. Shavers, and Daniel Wetmore, our director of student services, are consulting members. So they are in the loop on all of our communications and our information that we're reviewing to consult on our next steps. And we wanted to make sure of that so that we do have the big picture of programmatic and equity-driven initiatives in the district. We also have the Director of Science, K-8, Christy Chiapetta, and our Early Childhood Director, Bernadette Butler, on the committee actively to make sure that across content, our literacy development is embedded into all parts of a student's day, and to make sure that our earliest learners have a clear on-ramp for a strong start. And it works in tandem with our existing K-5 resources. The second phase will include our Director of Social Studies, Barbara Wright, so that we can also make sure our content is supporting the literacy practices that we know to work best. So then I'll go into the why, the professional learning. So this was a really important first step to make sure we level set and calibrate our understandings about the components of literacy, what the evidence tells us, and what our experience tells us about students and learners in Milton. So there's a platform called Cox Campus, and it is a free online learning platform that is asynchronous. So you do it independently, but it's interactive. So I don't know, you might have done a training or two where if you go to a different tab, the module shuts off, so you can't just play it in the background. You have to really engage with it. It asks questions, you click, and it's a whole thing. So all participants engaged with this module over the summer and collectively completed 200 hours of PD over the summer in a variety of topics that I'll get into, but it was all centered around the science of reading and structured literacy. So not all members completed all modules, but all modules were completed by multiple members. So we had a good overlay of who engaged with which platforms, and that really is helping us to have deep conversations about next steps in our process. This next slide shows, I'm sorry about the clicking. I didn't mean to put these in swish order. It wasn't intentional. These were the topics of the workshops that were offered. So these topics listed, data-driven instruction, vocabulary instruction, systematic phonics, reading fluency, writing. All of these ranged from either 1.5 hours up to 4 hours. And so I think if you completed them all, you completed 28 hours of PD, which we had a few members do. And so it's a pretty wide range, but also included all of the components of a program we'd be looking at. So following now between September and October, we've been really deeply in the work of how. So now that we know some of, and if not lots of, the why, how do we want to evaluate materials using that why? So the identification of priorities, we used our current and previous professional learning expertise and experiences in grade level students and standards to look at and surface our priorities of specific areas of improvement. So we had deep discussions and reflection to surface these priorities and make sure we're capturing the areas that we know we want to shore up, that we want to make more consistent for students. And the committee elevated a very consistent 3: standards, alignment, and rigor, equity and cultural responsiveness, and instructional design and usability. So those 3 priorities helped to develop and solidify the rubric that we've agreed to use when we do look at materials. This then led to us developing a rubric that we started with a DESI rubric. So they provide you with a rubric when you're doing this work. but we wanted to make sure we're reflecting the local lens of Milton, because every district is different and every student body has different needs. So, yeah. So the rubric itself on the next slide looks at things like, and this will look similar to the modules that we engaged with, things like writing, vocabulary, foundational skills, text and task complexity, assessment and feedback, varied instructional strategies. So these are all the things that we want to make sure we get right, or at least as close to right as we can with a resource. And so just as we have been with the whole process, we're following the lead of the state in making adjustments to reflect our local context here in Milton. So then we move into the what, which is what we're starting to do now. We're just starting to look at the materials, and it's important to note that when we talk about high quality instructional materials, which is how DESE refers to these publishers, we're referring to it as a primary curricular resource. So what we know is that some of these programs can be very scripted. We do not want teachers to get something and read from a script and do exactly as it says. But what we do know, and what we know to be true, is that teachers are most effective when we have a consistent resource to have students experience each grade level similarly and use their expertise to make adjustments for the students in front of them and what they're showing them. And so this is clearly part of the process we're in now. So we're looking at the 6 publishers that have highly approved materials. Those are the 6 we're starting with. And then we're in the process currently right now of narrowing down those choices. We're using the parameters that we established as a committee that I talked about earlier to identify a subset of programs to deeply investigate. So we're not going to deeply investigate and go watch in real time these 6. We're hopefully narrowing it down to 4 or 3. And we're using Curate, which is Curriculum Ratings by Teachers, which is a local Massachusetts rating system, as well as Ed Reports, which is national, to identify the broad options and really look at the strengths and opportunities in each of them. Following that narrowing down, we will do a deeper dive by going to districts that use these curricula, interviewing teachers and administrators, observing classes and students to see what it looks like in real time. There's a network that I am a member of, the South Shore Literacy Leaders Network, and all the ones that are listed on DESE are implemented by people that I work with in this committee. And so there are relationships there that we can tap into and go and visit their schools, which is a great opportunity. Also, if you have other questions about Curate and Ed Reports, those are links, so you can click on them if anybody wants to do that in your free time. Okay. Then there are 2 other items just under this title. As I said, we're going to investigate each against our practices and rubric, as well as visiting and seeing it in real time. And then we'll recommend the highest rated resource by the committee, available with the understanding that nothing is perfect and we'll need to calibrate given our local context. So it's just what it says it is. We're not going to find the dream. If we did, we'd be billionaires, but we're going to do our very best. So the next steps for this, and looking ahead in February, as we've said, I'll come back and follow up with you to present and share the results of this part with the support and approval of the superintendent. And then we will have more detailed next steps to present to you. How we're thinking about the supports needed and the professional development needed, and more concretely what that might look like. And of course, the budgetary impact cannot be overlooked. The initial materials will be purchased in the spring with funds that were already budgeted in our FY26 budget costs. An additional PD over the summer during the 26-27 school year will be outlined and planned between now and February for the district-wide FY27 budget. Generally, a small group of teachers will be checking in regularly with their colleagues on the pacing and needs and any adjustments that need to be made. And these are the steps that we anticipate. So we're going to follow it as closely as we can, but we'll make adjustments as we experience the reality of the selection and the adoption process. Okay. So again, this is sort of the pie in the sky, what we think is going to happen, and then we're going to adjust once we have a more clear vision of what this looks like. So the idea would be to procure the materials in the spring so that we can get teachers' guides and online platform logins to be distributed early enough to staff before the end of the year to give time to really get familiar with as much as possible and have time to connect with the committee who will be more familiar with the materials. Use some PD time in the spring to give teachers to collaborate and look at these materials, and then set implementation goals and timelines. So we'll have a general idea in February, but once we have the materials, we'll be able to more specifically make a plan and see what's realistic for professional learning related to that. The curriculum committee will collaborate to identify what areas in the curriculum may need to be bolstered or where we might need to tailor it depending on our specific context here in Milton. And then this is likely ambitious, but having a pacing or scope and sequence to take place before teachers leave for the summer. That part might be an evolution of a big picture, and then we refine it over the summer, but that would be the hope, so that we don't come back to that work needing to be done. So the FY27 budget will provide resources, and this is something that Central Office has communicated in collaboration with Katie Blake, to provide resources for the specific PD needed over the summer and throughout the school year. And again, we'll go into more detail in February as we have an actual publisher to work with. So something important to know that we have already responded to some of the identified gaps that teachers, we did a survey 2 years ago with a sort of a 1.0 curriculum team that surveyed teachers to think about what is it that you find you're needing to supplement the most, or what do you think is a gap that you have right now? And phonics and foundational skills was a big one. And I remember coming to you all and presenting that was a finding. And you very generously supported our ability to implement UFly, which is a very highly thought of curricular resource for that. And so we've been doing that since the fall of 2024, and we've seen some good results in our DIBELS data. And so this will dovetail well with whatever resource we find to be the best. Lots of districts use that for that reason, that it is very effective. And so we anticipate being able to continue the use of that resource, that familiar resource for teachers, to make a comprehensive approach. So the ongoing training that will be needed to make sure that the curriculum design and approach is on track with our goals. And then of course, we'll monitor student engagement and assessments for impact, and then adjust where needed. And that's sort of a 3 to 5 year. That's more like, ongoing, what we do all the time type of thing. And that's it.
So thank you, Kat, very, very much. Just a couple of clarifications before we take questions from the committee. This was an important subject to the community. I think a lot of communities over the last few years. So we're very thankful that the committee put forward the funding through last year's budget moving into the FY26 budget in order for this work to take place. It provides us a huge jump start in getting this preparation work, planning work, with the DESE resources combined with the local view of our experts in the classrooms in Milton. And also very much thankful that Kat and her team are looking at the UFly phonics as part of this approach. No one publisher has all of the needed tools and platforms and techniques for any one subject. So whatever we buy for a platform or a publisher or a curriculum will always need to be supplemented. And I think the phonics approach that's been happening in Milton over the last few years has left the teachers and students in very good hands. So I want families to know that what's going on in ELA right now in early literacy is really working. And Colin and I saw that firsthand at a couple of the elementary schools with the UFly phonics lesson happening. That was just amazing. The ease at which all students in the room were available to access this in Tier 1 instruction between the technology on the board and the use of the strategies that the teacher was putting in place were incredibly impressive for someone who's just a second-year teacher. The curriculum was that user-friendly to students and to staff. So thank you for looking at it this way to be complementary in the work that you're doing this year. And the way that we're looking at our budgeting cycle is based on our philosophy of what we need, which is based on the priorities that we have as a district now, which this is one. And so Katie has already established a professional development line in the budget that will be dedicated to not only text materials and supplies, but also PD for next year. So we'll need to be able to orchestrate that through our finance work to support not just this initiative, but how the professional development will work in a cycle form that Carla is putting together with all of the leadership team that we'll be meeting with tomorrow. So this is very much the beginning of creating that healthy cycle of, committees investigating, learning, using statewide rubrics to identify good materials, take a look at what the local need is and the local pieces of work that we already do well, and then implement professional development, choose a publisher, and then we'll have funding for summer, we'll have funding for the fall in order for those folks to meet, talk, and develop the skills in the classroom with the new platform. So this will be a very organized approach to the work that I think the community has been waiting for a while. So I think the last 2 years have been very healthy with the UFly, and thankfully this work will then extend that to be a complete early literacy program for the town of Milton that is kind of under the umbrella of what DESE has already researched and what we think will be best for Milton locally. So thank you, Kat, for doing all the work and leading this work, and to all the committee members, which is a very big group, by the way, that represents all different grades, all 4 elementary schools, special education, and our DEIB work as well. So this is a comprehensive view that I think the town has been waiting for, and we're really excited to deliver this year and be ready for September of 26.
I'm just really happy about this. I'm so happy about this. I feel like
Good.
a year ago, this wasn't even on our, it felt impossible.
Yeah.
And now to see September 2026 as, yeah, it's like, wow, that's right around the corner. So thank you so much for everything.
Well, thank you for being with me. And, I feel like we've been talking about this for a while. And,
We have, and I'm psyched.
teachers have also been like, oh, is it time? in a good way. Like, we're doing the good work, but it's going to feel really good.
Yeah. No, and
Thank you.
I'm glad to hear that you collected all that data last year and kind of finding out what the holes are, and hopefully that'll help this process along. So I'm really excited. Thank you.
And I also want to echo that I love your approach for this whole project. You start with the why, because that is the most important thing. Because as you said, there are a lot of curriculums out there, and there's no one curriculum can fix all the problems, regardless what subject we're teaching or what subject we're learning. And it's great for the teacher to have access to multiple curriculums and be able to pull the useful material for the students to use in the class or for homework. Meaningful homeworks is important. If homework is not meaningful, maybe we should not have homework. Right? Yeah, so I'm glad that you're looking at the why perspective and then move on to the how and the what. Yeah. Thank you so much for doing this work. Mark?
Again, similarly, very, very excited, appreciative of all the work you're doing. As I'm wondering, within the rubric development, is there a particular ELA skill that you are most hoping the new curriculum will support?
Yeah, it's a good question. The answer is all of them. But the real, we had a team. We're participating in a consortium grant with Curry, Stonehill, Randolph, Braintree, and Milton. This is our second year in the grant. And the way we're using this grant is, yesterday we were able to bring a team of 8. Along with the administrators, and it was about writing and science and using content writing to drive the writing process and assess that. And that has been the area, I think writing, most districts, if they're being honest, will tell you writing is the hardest, I don't want to say the hardest subject to teach, but it is a real nebulous being, because to get your hands around the craft, the conventions, idea development, there's so many components. It's such a lift cognitively. I think I'd say writing. I think it's the hardest to find to be linear. But my work with Christy Chiapetta, the science director, we're doing a lot of thinking around how to make it easier for teachers to maximize minutes, because there's never enough time. How do we not ignore the content standards, but use the writing content standards to work with the science investigations to move the writing process? So we've already sort of got some ideas on whichever resource surfaces as the selection, to make sure we're being thoughtful about how it works with our other resources as well. So short answer is writing.
Does the district currently use, or is the plan to use kind of a standard writing kind of brainstorming tool, planning tool that, kids kind of build on?
Yep. So that's been a big conversation in the K-8 world here in Milton. Right now, people are using different things. You might hear a RACES approach, like it's restate, answer the question, claim, and then evidence, and then some people use the 3 C's. So there are a lot of different things. Our hope is that we will have a common language so that students, no matter, especially when they go from elementary to Pierce, that there's a similar language and vernacular that they don't have to relearn. The hope is that it will be the same. There's a balance then between teacher craft as well. So balancing those two things. But yes, the hope would be that we have a similar writing approach across the bands.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Kat, thank you for this. I echo everything over there, and also appreciate the rigor and kind of planfulness of the process. I have 2 quick things related to the rubric. One is, I assume when you purchase a curriculum like this, you're not just one day receiving a giant FedEx box on the front step. You're like establishing a business relationship with the publisher that includes some kind of wraparound support.
Yep.
So I think I would just recommend that you include some kind of assessment of the quality of that relationship, and whether it's in the rubric or something else as you're assessing that, because even if you buy the best curriculum, but you have a frustrating business partnership with that publisher, that could just leave a bad taste in your mouth for sure, and everyone else.
Yes. It will be part of my interview questions for the districts when we get to visit, to just ask about their experience with customer service, because it can really thwart your attempts to have a strong implementation. Yeah. So it's a good point to raise.
Great. And then on the rubric, you mentioned that you all will develop a rubric with looking at these 3 areas and other things, and that you will somehow account for the unique flavor of Milton. Can you just say another couple sentences about that, like what that might look like, or where you might be differentiating the rubric? Yeah,
so the rubric itself won't reflect those differences. The differences come from the conversation as a committee that we have. So it's this balance of qualitative and quantitative data collection around this process. The rubric obviously provides that quantitative, we do need the numerical ratings, because, we're kind of, educators are very good at finding the good in everything. But we do need a delineation of, well, is it really good or is it just okay? The qualitative part of it comes from, so if you have taught kindergarten for 5 or 15 years, you've taught to the standards that are on the rubric, but in reality, as it plays out, as you've been in this space, what are the nuances that aren't in the rubric, and how does that influence our ability to use those ratings? So it will be less so quantitative and more qualitative as we discuss, because as Desi has noted, those 6 curricula are high quality, but it doesn't mean that they're going to be high quality or easily implemented here. So the different demands of our schedule. So we have, languages that are earlier on. So how does that go with our timeline? Like some publishers recommend 90 to 120 minutes a day in a 5th grade or 4th grade classroom when they have, future problem solving and language and, all these different things. So we need to consider the local parameters that are specific to Milton. So I think that's more so what it would be. And looking at data, like what are the students, where is it that we need to focus in, and what parts of the rubric would speak to that, and sort of looking at that. And I would then do that with central office and say, I'm looking at like accessibility to all learners. Do we see any differences in our performance in subgroup data? Things like that. Is that
Yeah,
answer?
no,
Okay.
that's really helpful.
Okay.
Can I ask one more thing? Just as part of that, what role in I suppose in the more qualitative evaluation will the French immersion, the fact that we have a language immersion program in the district play in how you evaluate it?
Yeah, so in grades 1 and 2, it doesn't, because this is an English language arts, and we know that French language arts is complete immersion in 1 and 2. It won't play a big role in 3, 4, and 5, as once students get to 3, 4, and 5, we use the U-Fly in grade 3 only in the French immersion portion, because we know that the foundational skills are really what is different. It could be different about our students as they enter in. It takes a few months for those early literacy foundational skills to transfer from the language of French to English in a formal academic setting. Beyond that, they've been experiencing the standards of reading and writing in a different language, and we allow time for that, but it wouldn't necessarily impact the materials we're using. It'll still be grade level standards based. We just allow for a longer on-ramp for those skills to be demonstrated in grade 3.
You anticipate keeping U-Fly as like the bridge for there? Okay. Thank you.
Based on right now, on
Yeah,
October
totally.
22nd.
I'm so sorry I was late from a work event, and I look forward to watching the presentation, and thank you.
Well,
Do you want to go ahead?
no, after you, please.
Thank you. That was great. It was really helpful. I had a couple of questions. Within the rubric, and this might apply to all curriculum, but do you look at the ability for the curriculum to be modified?
Yes.
And where would that fall within the rubric?
In the rubric, yeah. It would fall within the accessibility portion. So we have, I think it's 2, maybe 3 items on the rubric that address our ability to make whatever materials they are accessible to all students. Now that would be students who are English language learners, students who are on an IEP, students who may have already demonstrated mastery of a content or standard at a grade level. What does that look like? And so that is a large consideration in our in the second, I think it's the second, or it might even be the first, the rigor and the standards-based nature. Like, how do we provide scaffolds, and when do we remove those scaffolds, and how does that work? So yes.
Great. I was also very happy to hear you say about the writing. I think that's one of the things that I see a lot of, that in other districts. It's just when you're talking about the writing, there's never really necessarily a program that's mentioned or consistency around how it's taught. And I think to your point earlier, there is like a higher order level of thinking that it requires. So it's a lot of information synthesis, and then then sharing what you know.
Yep.
And that goes across all subjects. So I think that that's really helpful. So thank you for that.
Of course.
I had one other thought and question, and I know when you talked about who you reach, like getting input from people locally and talking about that piece of it. There's a lot you read about with states like Mississippi, where they have really incredible, they've seen a lot of growth with their reading scores. Is there the opportunity, or do you reach out or see what some of the programs that the curriculum that they're using in those areas where they've seen such success, or do we kind of keep it more local?
Yeah, it's a good question. We are seeing a lot. I was having this conversation last week with some colleagues in Canton. You see a lot of growth in a lot of those states. There was a lot of growth to be had, right? So, it's just sort of what it was. And you see the Massachusetts legislation that has come down about, the dyslexia screener, as well as science of reading. That came later because it was, I don't want to say less urgent, because every child's experience is urgent. But on the aggregate, we weren't in Massachusetts doing as poorly, so it wasn't as necessary to make it a law. Whereas these other states, it became a mandatory law. So you saw entire states like Tennessee, Mississippi adopting one curriculum, which is interesting. And so we're sort of it sounds funny to say, we're catching up in terms of the trend for this. So it's a little different here. It's also a very different culture in Massachusetts as it is in some other southern states when it comes to, teachers' craft of teaching and choice-based things like that. So we are talking locally about what the trends are and who's finding success with which programs and why. And I would say on the whole, there isn't one that's like, everybody is happy with. And there isn't one that everybody says is terrible. So what that tells me is that, like most things, it matters less about when you have a group of high quality things, it matters less about what it is, it's what we're gonna do with it. So that is to Bao's point, like why we start with the why. And I know I'm getting off topic, but that's something we're talking a lot about. Because you're right, in states like Mississippi, they've seen, much to their credit, some incredible growth in their early literacy.
That's great. All right. Thank you.
Yeah, sure.
Did you have another?
Yeah, just a couple things. I think to that last point, I agree. I mean, I think there are multiple high quality things. I think my experience too, it's also not just what you do with it, but the buy-in around the implementation that like people actually are going to take the material out, not just use the thing they've used for the last 10 years because they're familiar with it and feel comfortable with it. The sports feel comfortable with the new thing. So appreciate the thoughtfulness with the rollout and all that. It's great work. Two last questions I had was, this is, again, we're looking at a K through 5 curriculum implementation. This is not middle school focused. Is there, I know some of these curriculums obviously roll up through grades 7 or 8. Is there a thought of, is that a consideration at all within the curriculum selection that this is something that, could be in the future purchased for middle school, or that's not a consideration within kind of the rubric or evaluation?
So that is not a consideration in this case. I would say I would be very hesitant to do that. I think in my experience, and I'm not at all suggesting we do this, but there are more similarities in grades 4 and 5 to 6 through 8 than there are sometimes in K to 1 to 4 and 5. So, in some ways this is based on our structure of our schools and in sort of the physical structure of how we operate. But in thinking pedagogically, I haven't seen a resource that would make sense for that. We are doing some analysis this year with the middle school teams in our departments to look at the efficacy and the again, it's been 5 years now since we implemented Amplify, so we're doing what we do best is look at data and look at impact and student behavior and engagement. And it's just on a different scale because it's not the same, doesn't have the same budgetary impact, nor are we finding it warrants this kind of overhaul. So K to 5 is really where we're looking.
Gotcha. Last question I have was on just time within the school day. A lot of these curriculums are very clear about the minutes requirements and things. And is that, from your assessment thus far, something that will be a barrier to certain adoptions because we just either don't have the time or we have kind of restrictions?
No, it won't be a barrier. We always could use more time, but I don't see that as a barrier. No, there's like one outline curriculum that says like teach for 3 hours, and it's just nobody does that. So that would be wow.
So, thank you.
Anyone else?
Kat, we really look forward to your work and appreciate and value your work and the work of the committee from now until February. We're really excited to come back in a few months and hear about what the team has discovered and what they're recommending. We're excited also on the budget side of things to make sure that you have the resources that you need in order for the staff to choose a curriculum that fits the town of Milton and the Milton Public School students and staff. And we're really excited about the rollout once we decide on the product. So thank you for all your work. We very much appreciate it, and have a great night.
Thank you. Thank you all for your ongoing support.
Thank
Have
you.
a good night.
Thanks, you too. All right. Next up is the chair's report. So the first item, the first and only real update that I have is I shared with all of you that we did receive a response from the commissioner regarding our waiver request to extend Superintendent Phelan's term for the 26-27 school year, and that was denied. that was not, the commissioner did not, he recognized the challenges that we've had in leadership and the argument that we made. However, he believes in upholding the policy and the process, and that would be that we would be applying for that waiver for the 26-27 school year in March. That would then start in July. And I think, as we've all said, we believe that we need the leadership stability for another year. And so the other alternative path we have is to explore alternative pathways with John to see if we can come to an agreement outside of the waiver process for an additional year. So our next steps are working with Joe Emerson and with John over the next couple of weeks to see if we can come to an agreement. We would then hold, we have our next school committee meeting on November 5th. So we would hold an executive session then, during which we could talk about any agreement that we came to. And we would also have this on the agenda for the public meeting, and during which time we could vote if we came to an agreement and discuss that, or we could, if we did not move forward and weren't able to come to an agreement, we could talk about the process for implementing or starting a search for a permanent superintendent. I think we all, I know that I'm speaking for everyone, that we hope that we can have the relationship continue for another school year. I think that it would be really beneficial to the community and to the school community. So that's the intent. So that's where we are. So the waiver was denied. We will regroup over the next couple of weeks. We will have an executive session and an open session on the 11/5 meeting. So not the outcome we had hoped for, but also not completely unexpected, knowing that it's a very process-oriented department. Anything on that? No, all right. And then the only other update that I have is Fall Town Meeting is next week. We will be there. We don't have, there isn't a warrant for us, but we will be there. The first night is Monday night, October 27th, and then they're holding the dates of the 28th and the 29th as well. That was it, short and sweet. We will then jump to the Finance Subcommittee report.
Finance Subcommittee met today. We also met last week. Continue to work around the budget overall, and appreciate all the work that John and Katie are doing on behalf for the district, managing those things. We obviously voted on the budget calendar previously. We've, as we discussed kind of the last update here, we've been talking about kind of the budget priorities. That's a document that John shared and put in our school committee materials today. And so I will kind of pass it over to him to talk a little bit further about that. Just if there's any other framing you want to give around the budget priorities here, John, the
Sure.
philosophy that we put in there.
So thank you, Mark. We've had several finance meetings this year, and there was a recommendation that we really start to think about before we start doing the calculations of a budget, that we actually start to build our philosophy and our priorities for the budget this year that are based and rooted in the priorities and strategy that we have for the district related to teaching and learning. So just as we had met in this room early September about the school committee goals being connected to the superintendent's goals, which are connected to the leadership goals that are driving instruction in our schools every day. We use those same priorities when we think about how we want to budget our resources to support those goals. So to all of us, it feels like a very good sequence of events and a very strategic look at how we want to organize the district, and then that organization should be supported by the resources. So the FY27 budget philosophy and priority statement literally is an outline of what we're looking to do in establishing the budget this year, what initiatives that we would like to move forward with as it relates to our 5 priorities for the year. And just a recap for the public at home, and this document will be posted, and to paraphrase a bit, the first thing that we want to do is make sure that we set up a budgetary process and a financial strategy that supports the good stewardship of our tax dollars towards our teaching and learning, the classroom, and the staff that we serve and the students that we serve. So we have to have a sustainable budget that supports all the things that we need for our students, or most of the things that we need for our students, and also is aligned with the financial support and revenue that we have from the town. We can't plan for more because we have to plan for what we have. And we've had a generous override just last spring. The town has done their job. We thank them for that. And then now it's our job to make sure that we budget the correct amount of funds and make sure our lines in our budget are aligned to support teaching and learning, and also the other parts of the budget that we wanted to talk about. So the district resources from a teaching and learning perspective will focus on robust Tier 1 instruction. We've heard this before. It'll focus on data-informed instruction. It'll focus on increasing rigor and high expectations and high support in the classroom. It'll focus on taking strategic actions for all of our underperforming students that we see in our recent data with the MCAS coming out last month, and also the continued cultivation of culture and climate in our classrooms, in our schools, and in the district. So we feel that in really encapsulates what we want to do in the schools this year, and the budget should follow. When we start to look at prioritizing the budget, the first thing we want to think about from a budget perspective, not necessarily a teaching and learning perspective, is all of our budget lines need to be supported with revenue that fits what our expenditures over time have been. So this goes back to budget versus actuals. We want to make sure that we know exactly what each line of our budget needs. And we learn about that by looking backwards 3 to 4 years so we can see what those expenses are. And we also want to make sure that as we do that we support the lines in the budget that aren't as visible to folks. So we had this conversation this morning in Finance Subcommittee. All of our revolving accounts really need to be supported in the budget. This year, our transportation line didn't have as much money as we thought, so we have to support that this year. So we're really going through the budget and identifying areas of the budget that aren't as visible, like salary, FTE count, text materials and supplies. But how much money do we have in our transportation revolving account? How much money do we have in our out-of-district student tuition account? Is our transportation account, revolving account, funded in a way that supports all aspects of the district? So those are the behind-the-scene pieces that we really want to support as well, because they have to be healthy in order for the complete budget to be supported throughout a school year. So that stewardship and that sustainability over time is something that we're paying attention to. And I really want our community members to hear that loud and clear, because that kind of sustainability over time will build predictability for the schools, which allows for us to be more strategic and think long-term. It's hard to think long-term when you don't have the money to do what you need to do tomorrow. So it's really hard to plan for next year when you don't know if you're going to get by tomorrow. So we're really thoughtful about this being a learning opportunity for the last 3 years of our financial planning, what we're doing this year, and how we're looking at the next 3 years. So this is not a 1-year budget, it's the beginning of a 3-year budget for us. The other priorities that we have in our philosophy and our priority list is just matching our goals. We want strong Tier 1 instruction. We want to make sure that teachers have what they need, like an early literacy curriculum that actually has the ability for teachers to access materials for students to be able to be challenged across accessibility levels that they see in their classrooms. We also want to actively talk about how we can fund learning gaps that we see in our schools, especially to some of the students who have historically not made benchmark. That's not acceptable in the town of Milton. Every student should be at benchmark. We have to make sure that we take care of that work, and we have to be strategic and thoughtful about how we do different things for different students in order to scaffold them to where they need to be at grade level. And that's something that we'll be targeting our budget towards as well. Learning gaps is something that we have been looking at in the data and are wanting to address this year and next year and over the next few years. And lastly, we want to make sure our budget includes things that make sure that families feel valued, welcomed in schools. Something that would come under the district classroom culture and climate would be, we had a real struggle this year with transportation. Families weren't happy with the school department because they couldn't get their children to school on time or safely. So under that bucket, an example would be, well, we need to prioritize a bus, something very simple like that. An example for tier 1 instruction would be providing the funds for professional development for the summer for our early literacy program, and also funding for PD throughout the year to ensure that there's a continuity of support for those teachers as they implement it as the first year goes through. Funding learning gaps could be providing more math intervention specialists at the elementary schools. We have 1 per school, and the Tucker has 1.5. So we should really be thoughtful and look at our scores and find out, is there any room for us to shift our schedule, review our FTE allocations, and how can we support students in the area of math in the early grades, in early literacy, et cetera. So trying to give some examples that there'll be concrete examples that we will bring to you in the budget process that say, we're prioritizing these 4 or 5 or 6 or 7 things. But remember, the budget's only so big, so it might mean that something may not be funded because we need to align the funding with our priorities. So I think that we've collectively agreed that our areas of focus this year have been very solid. Our staff is buying into it. We're hearing from the principals that the educators are very happy with the direction that we're going and feel that they're being supported in their work each day in the classroom. So now it's our turn to support that financially and target our resources to the classroom and to the teachers that we depend on in order to get the student outcomes that we need. So this is just a 2-page document that we'll post on the website for folks to read. And when folks say, well, how are you going about determining what's good for the district around how you budget? This is the beginning of that process.
Yeah, just want to, again, thank John, thank Katie, as always. Really appreciate John just carrying the water of kind of putting this together. And as he said, aligning this with kind of other priorities that we've obviously already talked about here. And the goal that, I think we all saw, obviously with the experience last year, but John has been, I think, like from a finance side, laser focused on from day one of that long-term budget sustainability and how important that is and how we need to have a clear path forward. And that's also something we'll be talking about in next finance committee, of like starting to talk through ideas around policies related to rollover budgets, the circuit breaker accounts, things like that, to make sure that we have good checks and balances in place for those things. So appreciate all of that work. Any questions folks have around the budget priority?
Just had a comment. I think as it relates to the conversation that we just had about the early literacy, understanding the why. So when I think that that's really important for everything that we're doing. So even the way that we come to meetings and have a presentation, why are we doing this? We're doing it to inform, we're doing it to discuss. But I think with respect to the budget, I think it's really helpful, to your point, when people ask why something is or is not being funded. This is the why. Does it fit within this? And I think it helps streamline and manage that conversation more easily, so people understand what does get funded and what doesn't. So thank you for that.
You're welcome.
Great. Another thing that we talked about today, Katie put together the Q1 budget reports. That was also in the materials. We were able to review that this morning. Ask Katie some questions. She's always very, very well prepared. The summary page of that is always very helpful to kind of give you context of where we currently stand. I think, like, from broad strokes perspective, feel good about where things stand. The work that Katie and the team is doing around kind of getting more information into the financial system with regard to encumbrances, so we can anticipate expenditures throughout the year better than we were last year, and can improve those financial systems. And then obviously that document also reflects some of the reallocation work that this committee has been made aware of previously around not backfilling certain roles in order to strengthen certain line items. And I think you can see really clearly within the Q1 report how helpful that work and the work that Katie and John did within that was to kind of strengthen certain line items where clearly we ended last year above the budget amount, and so the budget amount for this year, and so we are in a much better place now than we were back on July 1st, and certainly a much better place than we've been in the last few years. So again, really appreciate y'all's efforts on that. Anything else you want to share on the Q1 report?
No, the only thing that I would add is that the report, so we do have the budget website that is a part of the district's website. So the Q1 report will be posted to the website. So if there's anyone that is watching the meeting tonight that wanted to be able to review the Q1 report, there will be a copy of it there, as well as a copy of the budget philosophies. We try to just structure the report in a way that there is a memo that provides some context. There's also a financial exhibit that has expenditures organized by cost center. There is a revolving fund report, which the revolving funds are separate from the operating budget. And then the last piece of the report is just a definition for some of the terms that are used within the report. So just for folks that might not be familiar with some of the terms that we're using because they are somewhat specific to school finance, there's somewhat of a glossary of terms contained within the report. So I'm happy to answer any specific questions that you might have about the financial report or any of the context within the report, but I just wanted to add that just in case anyone was wanted to take a look at the report or review that.
I also just want to compliment Assistant Superintendent Blake. The report out by Cost Center is an incredibly detailed document that shows what was budgeted, how that budget number was updated by line, by Cost Center, what's been encumbered, and what's already been expended so far this year, and then what the balance is for the rest of the year. So these are the types of questions that I think folks were asking last year. Where and when can we get on? How can we see what you've spent to date? This isn't just a larger, where we spent about 20% of our budget so far this year. This is based on about 15 cost centers, and within each cost center, there's another 6 or 7 lines of the budget per cost center in all those categories of what's encumbered, what's been spent, what's already budgeted, what's the percentage of those dollars that have been expended this year. So I do encourage those folks who want to find out more about how we work financially and where we sit with our reporting and being very explicit about what we're doing with the budget this year to visit the budget page and to see Katie's work. And please read the narrative, because the narrative really brings the story of the data and the reports together in a way that actually is the essence of why a Q1, Q2, Q3 process is better than just giving folks the lines of the budget, because there's a story behind every cost center, there's a story behind every line, and we want to make sure that people have the complete picture. So Katie, thank you very much for an extremely comprehensive document.
Thank you, Katie.
Just 2 other things I'll say, that the recording of our finance discussion this morning is already up on NATV. So that continues, those things continue to be posted. And so folks want more detail, they can do that. And then we'll also be sharing the Q1 report with the Budget Coordination Committee now that it is your desk. So after tonight, we'll kind of forward that over, and that will be something that will also be reviewed in that context as well. Any questions about Q1? Last thing, just to update on finance. I mentioned kind of our next meeting, we're working on some of the rollover accounts, policies, things. Another thing to note is on November 3rd at 7 p.m., we'll be going in front of the warrant committee for kind of a budget school finance 101 presentation, similar to what we did last year. There's obviously not any information on our FY27 budget request or anything, because we don't have any of that yet, but just a kind of intro of how the school finance work. Katie put together a draft agenda previously that kind of the finance committee looked at. We shared it with warrant committee. They gave the thumbs up. So we're preparing to do that on the 3rd. Sent an email to Charlene. I believe it will be cross-posted if any other school committee members want to come. Everybody obviously can attend since it'll be cross-posted. But that will be on the 3rd at 7 o'clock. Anything else I missed from finance? Sure.
Are we meant to vote on the report? It says vote.
Vote on the goals?
Oh, no, we do have
the Q1 report.
The Q1.
Do we vote on Q1 reports?
It says to approve the FY26 first quarter report motion.
I don't remember us
I don't
voting.
think we did that. I don't believe we've done that previously.
Yeah, I don't think it is something that requires approval. It's more just a report from
Right.
the department to the school committee to keep us informed. And so there's no
Right. I don't think
I think,
so.
legal reason we need to vote for it, unlike a budget or something.
So there were two other items under the finance. So the capital requests.
Yeah, so we did not have the chance to, and we did not put the capital request for the technology department on the agenda, so we can put that at next Wednesday's finance committee agenda. In your packet, though, you can see the preview from Director of Technology Bob Patterson with his capital plan for technology. That is a revolving 5-year plan with a narrative of what has already happened and what he plans to do in each category that's attached to that. And we're also working with down below, I think Tom McCarthy provided the capital plan to the facilities committee, and they can report out then. But we will bring the capital request for technology to the finance subcommittee next week and bring it to the next meeting.
Great.
And I haven't reviewed the warrant yet.
Okay. All right. Policy subcommittee.
Okay, so policy met last Tuesday. And one of the things that we talked about is the new policy JF, which is the middle school pathway exploration policy. It's in your packet for tonight with more detail, but it's basically to ensure that all middle school students and their families are informed about the high school options for career and technical education, as well as vocational programs. And this is so that we're in alignment with state and DESE guidelines. And so this policy basically outlines the process that we have been following, basically, but it's in policy format. And as you might know, our district partners with local and regional and agricultural public high schools like Blue Hills Regional and Norfolk County Agricultural High School to provide access for these programs. So we're actually really lucky to have these partnerships so that, so our kids have more options out there. And this is something that starts in 9th grade, and we cover the cost of these for our students to attend there. So, again, these partnerships have been great, and we've been kind of maintaining them for several years now, right? So. And then what we did in policy was we made a motion to approve the draft policy and for an expedited and first and final reading for tonight. So that's a motion that we have for tonight. We also discussed our student assignment process policy and the enrollment procedure that we've basically been using, but there's no change to the policy, but we have kind of updated the timeline so that there's only 2 basically lotteries. So there's that first initial one that includes all students that currently attend MPS, and then the second one, by pushing our date towards the end of June, allows for families that reside in Milton but don't currently attend Milton Public Schools. So just kind of streamlining the process, and some of the things that we discussed was basically clearer communication and just more advanced notice of the timelines, and so that it's more equitable. And so I think, John, you mentioned you were going to present on this.
Yes, I will.
At our next meeting.
Yeah, at our next meeting, I will have what that updated timeline looks like for assignment, not only for grade 1, which is maybe the driver of this conversation, but also for all families coming new to Milton. And how do they register? How do we communicate with them? And how do they make sure that they're plugged into school in Milton as they enter as a new family at all grades? But the driver is the grade 1 discussion that was, I believe, connected to the spring. So we want to make sure we clarify that for the community. So we'll put that on the agenda for November 5 meeting.
Great. And so we do have a couple of motions. We also have motions and second readings of policy IKF and IKFE, which are the graduation requirements and competency determination also. And then, of course, the policy JF, which is the middle school pathway exploration policy. So I don't know if there's any discussion on those first 2. I know, Mark, you had sent a note. if we wanted to talk about it. So I can go ahead and make a motion for the policy JF first and then, okay. So using the expedited approval process, actually, is there any discussion on that policy before I make the motion?
I think just for context, I think you might have hit, but DESE came out with this in September and required it to be approved in November. So it's a very quick turnaround from not because the department did not get on top of things, but because DESE kind of forced their hand very quickly.
Yeah, this is in response to the larger conversation about vocational and technical education across the state. And the state really wants to make sure that every school district has the ability to communicate with their families in order to show them a pathway to vocational school. So they're well informed in making those decisions about what high school they want to go to, if they want to go to vocational school. And also that for towns lucky enough to be part of a vocational partnership like we are with Blue Hills Regional and Norfolk Aggie, that there's a policy in place to make sure that we're following that. Thankfully, the middle school has always been doing all the things that were asked, and we're just codifying that in the MASC policy format that was provided. So this is a new policy. MASC provided the document. We put in our process that was aligned with the DESE expectation, and that's why there's no red line version. This is the first policy of its kind in our policy manual.
Okay, any other questions? Okay, great. Then using the expedited approval process, motion is made to approve policy JF, middle school pathway exploration policy. Do I have a second?
Second.
Thank you. All in favor? Unanimous. Thank you. Okay, so then I guess we can go back to just a discussion of the competency determination as well as graduation requirements, if we want to just briefly talk about it.
We had a really good conversation about this at our second meeting for this topic. There was a suggestion by Member Loring about do we want to keep MCAS and keep the graduation requirements as they are in the competency determination policy. And the discussion in the reminder that I want to give everybody the context, this is a section of the program of studies. This is not in addition to, it's not a separate document, it's embedded into our program of studies. So what does it take to graduate from Milton High? It used to take all the coursework that is named and MCAS. Now MCAS by state law, given the vote that was taken by the public, no longer is a requirement. So we're just now making sure and reiterating that the competency determination to graduate from Milton High, which is also embedded into the course of studies, which this body has voted every year as part of your due diligence, is to be able to pass the demonstrate competency in the coursework provided. We did discuss having the pathway of MCAS or passing those subjects, and I will let the members speak to their thoughts on that. We felt it was maybe confusing, number one, not necessarily because it was a moot point. If you're going to pass the classes to graduate, you don't necessarily have to take MCAS. It's no longer a needed avenue for folks to go down because it wouldn't be in place out. You'd still have to take the courses to graduate. So it became a moot point, for lack of a better term. So I just wanted to remind the context. I think that this feels like something that's new and different because we're actually creating a policy around it that we never had to have before. But this is basically an extension of what we've already done every year by voting the program of studies and what students need to know and be able to do by the time they graduate. So this competency determination, which I believe will be a short-lived policy because the state will come up with what the next generation of expectations are for formal graduation across the state. In each high school will probably come out in the next 1 or 2 years. And so I think we talked a little bit about that at the last meeting, but I hope that generally represents the discussion that we had at the policy meeting last week.
So if there are no other questions, I can go ahead and make a motion to approve the second reading of policy IKF graduation requirements. Have a second?
Second.
All in favor? Unanimous. And then I will make a motion to approve the second reading for policy IKFE, competency determination. Do I have a second?
Sorry, I thought we just voted competency determination.
Oh, sorry. Graduation
We
requirements.
just voted graduate. Oh,
Sorry.
sorry.
Do you have a second? Second. Okay. All in favor?
Do you want to need, okay.
I'd love to go back to graduate. I apologize because I thought we just talked about competency determination, not graduation requirement. But that's fine. I didn't.
I can actually,
Oh, okay.
can I provide some
Sorry.
context?
Yeah,
I think
yeah,
it's
sorry.
important to hear some of the concerns related to this, or just clarify. The graduation policy, when we were asked by MASC and the state to go through and hold or establish a brand new policy, which is called competency determination, which we just voted, when we read the literature to prepare for that work, it said, oh, and by the way, this should build on and be embedded or part of your graduation requirement policy. So then we thumbed through our policy book and realized that Milton never had a graduation policy. It always had a graduation requirement that was voted by the school committee through its vote on the program of study. So it's always been there, but it was never represented by a policy. So we thought we should get our wagon in order and make sure that that actually is part of our policy booklet. The vote that we're taking tonight, or just took tonight, to incorporate IKF, the graduation requirement policy, only represents what we're doing right now. It was only intended to represent what the last vote of the program of studies was,
currently
probably
in
last
place.
January, and the current one that we're working under. We do know that there is work that would like to be done or initiatives taken on in order to expand, increase the rigor, change some of those graduation requirements, as exampled by the conversation we had about a potential 2-year minimum for world language that we talked about. So this vote only codifies the requirements that we're currently existing under, that you voted last January, and that any new requirements that we cultivate over time, like the world language one as one example, would then have to be embedded into this policy when that becomes complete, and we present that initiative to the committee moving forward, or any other initiative for that matter.
So can you clarify then, because my assumption was if we were crafting a policy, it would be a time to discuss changes to the policy, whatever that is. What is, from your perspective, the appropriate time to have this discussion? Is that in January within the course of study review when Karen comes and presents, and that at that point we would expect that y'all would have some type of presentation data on any proposed changes that the department would like to make or not make to graduation requirements at that date, but that this just, you want more time to do that? Is that what I'm hearing?
So I think it might be I haven't been here for the program of studies presentations, but my experience in my work as a superintendent has been, by the time the principal brings it to the school committee, it's already been vetted by the leadership team that they surround themselves with in order to move some of the work they are doing in the department that they expected. It could be a course change, it could be adding something in one of the departments. It could be our early language around world language changes that would not be ready by this January, obviously, but that's what it would include. If in fact the school committee would like to have us explore things in preparation for that January, I think we should start talking about that now. Not necessarily like now, tonight, related to the policy, but in anticipation of the annual discussion and vote of the program of studies, if there's anything that the school committee would like us to explore, either to be discussed in part of the upcoming program of studies, or something to explore over time to be included eventually in the program of studies, I think that's an open conversation, Mark. I think that, for example, I think we had a dialogue last week about financial literacy and the potential for different languages. Those are all rich conversations to have, but those conversations would need to then morph into the request by the committee for the superintendent to direct the leadership team to learn about, review, reflect, find out about, and then make a proposal about whether they thought it was a good idea or not and what it would look like. So similar to how early literacy just worked, the funnel of the work would be, we need to change our early literacy curriculum. We're hearing a lot of feedback that it's not accessible to all learners. How do we want to go about it? Luckily for the majority of the state, DESE took that work on and did the research for the entire state, which allows Milton and other communities to plug into their best practices, their 6 publishable high quality material curriculums, and then we begin our work from there. So I think that if the committee would like to put ideas or thoughts for potential program of study topics on the agenda to debate, talk about, put on the table for us to then go back and meet with the group on, we can gladly begin that process when the committee feels they would like to do that. Because what I don't want to happen, Mark, is to say, yeah, we'll talk about it then, and they come with something that's already cooked.
Right.
Yeah.
So I
That's what happens every year.
That's why I'm trying to provide that right now, if we want something to be considered, I would only say that whatever's considered, I would imagine, wouldn't be into the program of studies for the following year.
Yeah.
I just don't think there's enough time between now and then to do enough research, cultivate the understanding, budget, and do all those things. For example, a simple world language 2-year minimum will take us 3 years to study, implement, pilot, budget for, and implement in FY 28. Because that's how that should work. I think that's the due diligence around making sure we're doing it correctly and asking all the people the right questions and investigating it and doing it in a way that we pilot and then we move into it. So the world language example would not be on your program of studies docket until, actually it could be a year from now.
In a pilot
January of next school year.
Yeah.
Jimmy, so we're talking about it now, we're doing the work now, and then we put it on the docket then.
And the purpose of this graduation requirements policy to pass tonight, the simplest way I have thought about it is we're codifying what's in place for class of 2026. So
Correct.
Therefore, you wouldn't use this opportunity to introduce a new requirement that cannot apply to students who are here operating under the courses that have been available to them and required of them. And it should evolve, over these near term conversations that we're planning to have. So I agree, it would be great to kind of have this ball start rolling.
Yeah. The frustration I think that Mark is expressing is, so if we comment on it when it's all cooked, then I can't help you cook the meal the next time. So I want to get involved in the kitchen.
Can I?
Yeah.
Yeah, because we had Karen here. I asked her last year about this, right? When can we start having this conversation? This was before you were here, right? And so totally understand that. But the conversation was I would like to have this conversation. I was told last year we couldn't. Course study is kind of closed. What was put in front of us, it's closed. Some of the points you're making, right? Not trying to say Karen did anything wrong there, but we were having the conversation too late. So I said, when should we start having this conversation? Statement was we should start having it now, really, at the end of the year. Obviously, other things took priority at the end of the year, and we were not able to have it. But that's why I brought this up when we talked about goals this summer. Of one of the goals I think of ours should be discussion of graduation requirements. How do we push that forward? How do we raise that rigor bar? Right? We have embedded that within one of our committee goals for this year. I don't think us passing this kind of policy that just stamps what we've been doing for 5 years, it accomplishes that goal. I'm one member, but I'm saying from my perspective, that is a procedural thing of we need to have this policy, and that's fine. We need to do that, but I don't think that pushes the work forward or the learning opportunities forward for kids by us just kind of saying, this is what we've done for 5 years, this is it. And maybe, again, committee members as a whole and the department as a whole will disagree with any opinions I have on the graduation requirement changes. But I would like to have the conversation, and I thought we were having that conversation a bit, last meeting when we had the first reading, and I was sharing some of these things. So I thought this reading was kind of a continuation of this. We don't technically need the other competency determination until the end of the calendar year, so I was thinking we had a little bit more time where we could talk through these things. But if there's a separate process that we want to talk through, I'm open to that. I am gun shy about the fact that I feel multiple times and again, this predates you, John, to be very clear, but have brought this up, and it consistently comes up as it's too late. This kind of is what it is. If we're saying we need to start having the conversation now in order to enact this for FY 28, then great. I understand that. I'm not trying to
rush something through without it being fully thought through and have buy-in
Right.
to the point we talked about the curriculum. Like we need buy-in
Mhm.
in order to move any of this forward. And so like totally, I just want that path to be clear. And then I, as a member, would like to push other committee members to say like, I think this is one of the things we listed as a goal and should be something we should spend time on discussing and figuring out what as a committee we think are appropriate changes, if any, to the graduation experience for our students that best sets them up for success when they leave Milton High School for any opportunity they want. So I think that's just the lens at which I'm trying to come at this a bit.
So I think that we can create a vehicle for that. So technically, if I could speak technically for a minute, and I don't mean to, that the school committee should direct the superintendent after you have a discussion either tonight or at any meeting forward coming, that this is important to the committee, that we would then have the committee vote to have a committee, to have the superintendent create a committee of folks that would do that, that would be inclusive of a school committee member. So we could formally take that committee and move it through work that would begin in November, that could inform to some degree what we propose in January, and continue that committee to see if there's anything that would want to be considered for other program studies moving forward. So I think that would be, to me, the pathway for this committee to have influence over, or at least discussions in research and understandings about how they can influence and have discussions about program studies. So I offer that genuinely, that I think that if we want to do that, we should actually commit to that. And I think that if we talk as a committee, and that I think some people might have, we could just have a subcommittee, or we could have our committee at the superintendent lens with one school committee member on it. We could do it formally, or we could do it informally. We could just start meeting about it, get the people around the table, invite the school committee to be part of the conversations, get ideas that are floating at this table that may want to be embedded into those conversations. So we are open to that collaboration for sure. And I'm just trying to think of the vehicle to make it work, so the frustration that you had last January and the January before that isn't felt this January.
I appreciate that, John.
I really appreciate that, and I think it's like a both and thing, because at the same time, when in this case we discover we're missing a policy that we should have, like we should move quickly to get that policy in place, and then we go from there. So I feel like you're leading us through a kind of a both and way to approach it, and I think that's the right thing to do. So are you suggesting, would this be like a sort of a formality to vote, which we couldn't do tonight, that this committee supports a direction of asking for this to be a priority leading up to the program study, that would be a vote we could take next meeting?
Yeah. Why don't we put it on the agenda for next meeting, and that way Amanda and I can talk, or we can talk about what that sounds like and what that looks like, and we might ask people to weigh in on what that pathway or that vehicle could look like that would make sense for people to be involved. How formal, how informal, how do we want to organize it? And then we'll put it in place with a vote next week, or at the next meeting, and then we'll begin the work.
Is that?
Yeah.
Okay. So it would be a vote for a support of a program of study, in essence, a program of studies committee.
Correct.
Of
And
some
we'll
sort.
write
Formal or-
we'll
right,
write up
yes.
that, define it, and vote on it next meeting.
Sorry.
Yeah.
I think it would be next, when we talk about this next time, I think it would just be good to, I feel like I'm coming into a conversation that's like already happening. So I think it would be good to like talk about what we're talking about a little bit. Just spend some time next time talking about it a little bit more. And whether it's the folks in the room who have opinions about where this should go, like I think it would be good for this group and for the public to just talk about what this kind of work could achieve over a couple of years, or some of the potential outcomes that this work could, this type of work could take us.
So kind of like a program of studies 101 to set context, and then come up with a vehicle to begin the work.
It could be, and I'm also happy to do pre-reads on this as well. And I don't want to. It sounds like Karen comes in a couple of months and does her own thing. But just so we have a common understanding as to the problem we're trying to solve here.
And my suggestion would also be that the program of studies that you vote each year is currently on the website. You should take a look at it and really take a look at, some of you might have elementary children and middle school children, but the high school is your flagship. It's what we all build towards. The requirements and the expectations here are rigorous. We have students that do very well coming out of Milton High every year. And the program of studies is the fundamental document that creates the pathway for that achievement and those outcomes for our students. And that document, I think you should all be familiar with. So I would recommend between now and then taking a look at it, getting familiar with how it's worded, how it works, what it means. Think of it through the lens of a school committee member. Think of it through the lens of a parent. And that way you can say, wow, like, I didn't know we offered economics. I didn't know we offered these courses, and how many, there's a lot of good stuff in there that you should be aware of as a baseline of adding to it or wanting to extend some of the offerings that we have, and how do we want to, grow the program of studies in a way that's good for kids. But knowing what it is first would be very helpful to your point, Nathan. I agree with you. Thank you.
Any other discussion? No. Do we have a vote we need to take?
Yeah, it was.
You already voted.
No.
I think there's a
wanna say I
motion
really
on the floor
appreciate
and seconded.
you raising this, because I think
yeah, we
it's really.
seconded. Did we
Yes,
vote?
we seconded it, I think, and
And
then
then-
we didn't vote.
Right. Okay.
But I just want to say I appreciate Mark raising this, and I think even the discussion that we had with Karen about the 2-year language requirement was because of, of what you raised. So I appreciate that we're starting those discussions. As you mentioned, it's going to take 3 years, but that we're kind of having those conversations already. So, which is great. So I think the more, like more conversations around that prior to January, I think will be helpful to just kind of be thinking in that mindset.
So the committee knows that Carla and I and Katie and her work as well, we are committed to fulfilling action steps related to the concerns and the suggestions of the school committee. That's our work. We take action on every single item that you ask us to think about and move forward on. You might not always like what we have to say about it, but I can guarantee you that we will take action on it. We listen, we're hearing you, we're trying to move the work forward, creating agendas, creating an agenda for each school committee meeting that acts on and fulfills the goals that you all have set for the year that are consistent with our goals. So we are all rowing in the same direction. We all want rigor in the classroom. This is rigor in the district. This is rigor at the high school. So we're glad to do the work and partner in the work.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, I guess I know the motion has been made and seconded, so all in favor of the competency determination motion? Thank you.
All right.
Okay, so then I have
Facility advisory.
facilities. Yes. Could I just go into the
Go ahead.
next
Go
one?
ahead. Yes. Sorry. Go ahead.
Okay. So, all right. So facilities met last week. We were at the newly renovated space at the Cunningham Collycott third floor, which used to previously be their library. Unfortunately, I didn't take any pictures because I know a lot of the classrooms were closed and it was after hours, so we didn't have a lot of access, but we kind of took a little peek. The space looks beautiful. I can't imagine it was the library a few months ago. Lots of windows. It was nice to kind of see offices with lots of windows. I mean, that was incredible. I think when the facilities advisory committee toured the schools, I think it was September 2023, right? It was, there was a lot of tiny closets that were converted to offices. So it was amazing to see lots of windows and light and some staff members working late because they have the space too. That was incredible too. So, and just really passionate about the work that they're doing. So I was really moved by that. I know the committee was very happy to see how much progress they were able to make. I think sometimes when you serve on committees and you don't see change happening, you're like, wait, I don't know if I really contributed. So they were just really excited to be there. And so it was beautiful. Tom said that the team that they worked with did a phenomenal job. The contractors, everybody stayed on schedule. They did everything to stay on schedule with very minimal interruptions and within budget. So that was awesome. We also went upstairs to the 4th floor of Cunningham Collycott, which is still, there's a lot of storage stuff there, but we were in a makeshift space for our meeting. And he said that the goal is to try to clean out that space over the next few months, especially over like December, February, and April break to like start some of the work. So clean out the space before then. So that's going to be the next big task for that. And then just so that they can be ready to go for the end of August. So again, I just really appreciate how diligently they're kind of thinking through this and making sure that there's the least amount of interruptions for our students. So it's really excited about that space. And I think I think even for the committee, when we first saw the space and we're like, oh, I don't know, like the library is beautiful the way it is, but now there's this like new hope for, wow, this library could even be better than we had. So that was really exciting to kind of see that shift in thinking. So that was great. I know there was some concerns Tom mentioned about pest management. They wanted to basically go electronic about what's reported so they can track it better. So he's on top of that, and he mentioned that the staff, the custodians, did a great job getting the schools ready in time, even with the renovation and everything. It was all ready to go. They had a really smooth opening for the schools. In terms of, I know there's some capital requests in the folder. We went over it briefly. So he said that, basically the schools have gotten a good deal of funds the last few years. So he's trying to see what we want to push forward. He mentioned like the exterior doors need some attention and support in our buildings. He also wanted to put most of the requests as district-wide. So if something unexpected comes up, that they can kind of shift the priority there, but also at the same time, trying to be equitable across all the schools so that they're getting the same support. And then he said he's meeting with contractors and consultants to kind of review our systems so that they can make recommendations going forward, just like the mechanicals and all that stuff. So also in terms of the 4th floor, all the mechanicals are in. I know initially we talked about like lead time on getting some of that. So all of that is ready to go. So it's amazing that in terms of schedule that they're able to stay on schedule. So we appreciate all the work that Tom is doing, coordinating everything. And then in terms of outdoor spaces at our schools are currently not equitable. That's something that we want to kind of create a comprehensive approach for this to kind of and develop a policy so that when things are put in place, they're kind of done thoughtfully, and so that all of our schools have kind of similar support and funding. So and I think he also mentioned that Tucker needs a generator that he believes we have funding for. So that is like the big thing that they want to focus on next. So anyway, that was, it was not a very long meeting, but it was just I think his requests are in. I think it's more of a 5-year plan that's in our folders if you want to look through it. He has some broken out by schools just based on like things that need to get done sooner. But then as you can see, they're also district-wide.
It's very concerning to see FY31.
My kids would have graduated by then.
So we're not voting on this yet. We're just getting the initial like
It's
feedback from the
I don't
committee.
know.
Is that
So we didn't, I mean, I know there's a vote on here. Is
Yeah,
that,
No, I don't
no,
think,
is there
You don't
not?
have
No.
to vote it.
no.
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 Oh, it's a motion. Okay.
I think
So, is it-
eventually we vote it
Yeah.
so that you can take it to capital.
Yes,
Correct.
that will be important.
Okay. So
but,
then I don't think.
and I
we-
mean, usually I think we've had the opportunity for Tom to come
yes,
and
that's why I was,
present
like,
it
surprised.
We
and
did-
take some questions if there are any from the committee. So maybe we could work to arrange that with him just at some point before we need to bring this to capital, which is not anytime too soon, I don't believe.
Yeah.
Yeah, so then we don't need to worry about the motion that's under facilities. Okay.
So we'll start to look at November 5 and we'll start to get busy, but this is timely, I think, because the town, I think, would like to see both Tom's facilities capital and Bob Patterson's technology one. So I can send these over to them in draft form
Okay.
so they can see what's generally coming for both of those. I'll let Nick know that they are not voted, but this is the documents that we're going to review, and then when we review them, and if we want Tom to come on the 5th or whatever date works for him and you all, we can do it whenever you choose.
Just a couple things on this. I think my initial thought is the 3.1 is not going to get funded. There's just no chance. I think last year we got 1 million, not counting the Cunningham projects. The total capital expense last year was 5.8. So I just think that's going to be too high. As much as I love for the schools to get that funding, that's I think even higher than we've started at the last couple of years.
Yeah.
I think we tried to get 1.5 and didn't even get that last year. So that's one piece of feedback I have for the committee, just figuring out how to cut down. One thing that confused me was it lists in row 41 high school gym floor replacement, but then in line 48, I think it's main basketball court, sand and lime. And so I
think that's the outdoor one, is it?
Well, it says the Copeland Field House and then the gym floor replacement at the high school, which is the field house.
Yes.
So I just didn't know if those things were.
I can follow up with Tom on those. Thank you.
I know Tom has mentioned previously those LED light conversions at the field. I know that is a utility suck as well. And so from my perspective, I think that would be a great investment. I don't know if boosters help with things like that, but I think that would help both in the immediate term because those lights are not great, not very consistent. They have issues, and it would save us some dollars utility-wise.
No, that's good feedback.
Just for clarity, Mark, to your point, the high school gym floor replacement is the rubber floor, and the high school basketball court sand in line is the actual wooden floor that they sand in line every year.
Gotcha.
I just would like to sort of state for the record, I really appreciate the conversation about the playgrounds, facilities across schools and how to approach that in an equitable manner. As the Tucker representative on this committee, I mean, we currently have play structures that are sort of wrapped in caution tape so that kids cannot go on them. And that's really unfortunate. So I know the PTO is working really hard to sort of activate what they're able to be doing there. And I appreciate the opportunity to approach that as a district, as well as in collaboration with MFE and other sort of the master plan for open space and whatnot that we have with Parks and Rec and whatever else. So thank you to everybody who's pushing on that to work that forward.
Can I give an update on that? I've met with the Tucker Playground Committee twice already, as recently as last week.
They've actually told me how much they appreciated your listening on that.
They have a great plan. I will be writing them a letter of support. They went before the CPC last week They got initial good news. They'll go back and hope for the final funding. They're in design phase now. They're looking to be in construction phase by summer of 26. They'll be asking for a letter of recommendation, not only from myself, but from the committee. So when they go out to fundraise for money that they need beyond the CPC funds, that whoever they're asking knows that they're being supported by the school committee and by the school department. And I did recommend that the stage of the work after they begin the fundraising and get their design in order would be to go to the facilities committee and go through the facilities committee, to Anna's point, to make sure that we begin this process of vetting everything through the facilities committee that goes to the schools and supporting each project in an equitable way instead of having one-offs done. So Tucker will be the first one to go through that process in a very thoughtful way, and we're supporting them in any way we can. And
Thank you.
they were a great group, so that's up and running, and I will be presenting those letters to you to sign at the next meeting. And if we would like that committee to come in front of the group at any point during the year, they'd love to come and
I think that would be
advertise
great.
their work
Yeah.
and begin their fundraising kick. So I'll let them know whenever they're ready for that. They're welcome to come to the school committee meeting and let us know where they are and how we can help.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
If I can add, I think one of the other things that was noted, and it relates to that, is I think not only necessarily from an equity standpoint, but going to the facilities committee going through a process so that they're sure that whomever they're hiring, however process they're going through, that it's consistent, that there's quality control, that there are questions that somebody who is very familiar with the playground or the land might know better. So if there's a drainage issue or something issue, that they're going through that process. So I think having him involved, remember we were talking about that,
Yes.
having that consistency, not only from just so that process-wise, that they're helping vet potential GCs or whomever is working through these projects, and I think that would be
But I
important.
think also, like, I know when it comes to, like, obviously with budgets, like, they're limited, right? So we want to make sure that the amount of money we have we're making sure that we use it so that whatever project has longevity, right? Like, so it's like we have systems in place so that they last longer. And so I think that's something that the facilities committee really wants to be involved in, and then it's great. There's a great group of experts in their fields on that committee, so we're very lucky, and that was very helpful too, like to get the third and fourth floor, kind of where it is. So we're hoping to help with the outdoor learning spaces and playgrounds at all of our schools.
And one more I want to recognize, Katie met with the group as well to talk about how they can navigate the financial pieces of that, the bidding pieces, the financial pieces. So I think it's really important for the facilities committee and the school department to act as consults for this. This is a group of parents who are working really hard to do something that they're wading into waters that are a little bit new for them. So any support we can give them to make it work, because it benefits the students at Tucker, but as well as the community in the neighborhood. So we'll continue to work with them in that way.
Thank you.
That's all I had.
All right. Negotiation subcommittee.
So the quick update on this is that our subcommittee met on last week, October 16th, and we'll meet again next week on October 28th in our pre-negotiation strategy meetings. So we've been reviewing input and are beginning to formulate proposals that we will be able to bring to the bargaining table when we begin negotiations. As I mentioned last time, we are planning to meet for the first time with the MEA on November 4th to establish ground rules and sort of begin the process. And I would anticipate that we might be ready to have an executive session to update the full committee, perhaps not yet on November 5th, but after the first session at which we exchange proposals. which, would not be probably for a couple weeks after that.
Okay.
But we'll keep you all posted as that moves forward. Did I miss anything?
No, great.
Great. The Budget Coordination Committee.
Can we do that? So I'll give an update on the last meeting, and then we can move to talk about the nominee. So I think the Budget Coordination Committee meeting was last week, right? So we spent most of the time with the town administrator, Nick Milano, was there to walk through the revenue forecast, which I think this committee already discussed as part of the finance subcommittee report last time. So that was most of the meeting, to make sure that the entire Budget Coordination Committee just had an understanding of projections for town finances. And then we spent a little bit of time previewing. So the committee has spent its time essentially getting aligned around the annual budgeting process, the timing, the inputs from different parts of town. It seems like we're now pivoting to focusing on long-term financial planning. And to one of the places where we're going to start is establishing I believe it is establishing, I believe these policies are new, policies around capital planning, debt management, and financial reserves. So we essentially just talked about the process for that, which will be that the town administrator has drafted some policies. He's looking for input from members of the Budget Coordinating Committee. And I assume that there will be some debate about that in these meetings. And then eventually these will be put up to the select board for review and approval. John, anything to add?
Nope.
Okay. And then any other questions from the group about that?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Should we move to the other item on this? Sorry. So in the folder we have, so in the Budget Coordinating Committee, we have 2 members from school committee on that committee, Mark and I, and then the school committee has the ability to appoint an additional representative. And we do have an application for that, which is in your folder. And I'm just pulling up the materials myself.
We reviewed that last time, so this is the second time we've seen that.
Okay, so everyone has seen this?
Yeah.
Okay, sorry.
No, that's okay. I think it was 2 meetings ago, or the last meeting too, that we shared it. But
Okay.
since everyone had just gotten it, not everybody had a chance to review it.
Okay.
And then we had the opportunity. So it didn't make sense to vote on it then.
Got it. Any discussion or questions about that appointment?
Just appreciate somebody raising their hand and willing to help us out. So.
Yes.
Yep.
Yeah.
I know this applicant a little bit, and I'm going to make a motion that we appoint him. But I think he brings, first of all, an understanding of what happens in our district. He's a member of CPAC, has been a town meeting member, works in state government, and really has a deep understanding of government finance and policy. So I think he would be both represent school committee well in that group and bring a lot of valuable knowledge and expertise to that group.
Great.
So I'll make a motion to approve the appointment of Mr. Robert A. Milt to the Budget Coordination Committee.
Second.
All in favor? All right. Thank you, Mr. Milt, for putting yourself up.
Welcome.
And you're very patient to sit through
I
the
know.
whole meeting.
That also makes you qualified for this.
Yeah, exactly.
All right. Sorry, I just got out of that one. Okay, and I think the final item is voting on, make sure that I didn't jump ahead. Approval of the minutes that they put in the folder for our last meeting. So I think they were for the
October 8th.
October 8th meeting, yeah. Are there any changes or comments on it? Has everybody had a chance to review it? So then I'll make a motion to approve the minutes for the October 8th school committee meeting.
Second.
All in favor? Great, passed. And then the last item is looking at the draft agenda items for the next school committee meeting. So we have the subcommittee reports. And then we want to add the MFE. We won't have correct, you want to do your update?
Yeah.
Yep, next meeting. Yep.
It'll be very short.
Yes, that's okay. Facilities, we won't have met. Will policy have met? No policy. Finance will, obviously.
And we will have another student representative attend our meeting for sure.
Great. Do you have any?
School building committee may meet, but right now they're scheduled that for the same night as warrant committee
Okay.
presentation. So
Okay. Anything else? Have you had MPEG or anything like that? Are you on MPEG?
Yes, and they were actually supposed to meet yesterday, but they did not and need to find another date that works
Okay.
for members to meet. So,
Great. Okay. All right. If anything else comes up. Oh, and then what about budget coordination committee?
That's next Friday.
So I'll put that down.
Yeah.
All right. And then we have the initial MCAS presentation, enrollment update, review of the policy JGA program assignment. We are talking about having discussion around the, I'm just calling it superintendent update. And then a possible executive session for the superintendent.
probably not for negotiation
No,
update,
not for
but
negotiation,
for
the
yeah,
superintendent
that would be like contract.
contract.
And
And then do we want to add something about the
program of
program of
study.
studies for next week? Is there anything else? I'm
Well, we
missing?
talked about the possibility of capital being back on the agenda, with maybe Tom being able to come if he's available.
Okay.
I'll add that.
we'll first start talking about that in January, right? Like a capital committee, talking about departmental requests.
So yeah, I
Just
think
wondering if like, yeah.
sometime I think the capital committee might meet in December to kind of get off the ground typically, and then it would be January that department heads would tend to attend a meeting and present. But it sounds like the town is also hoping to begin collecting the requests ahead of when the meetings might begin. So we have not heard anything yet as far as when the meetings will start, but
I think it was more just a statement of the 11th, the 3rd, or the 5th, I should say. It's sounding full, pretty busy with a lot of things. And so I don't know if that one, in terms of time coming in and presenting on capital, is necessary for the 5th versus the 12th. Obviously, y'all will make the agenda determination,
Yeah.
but just
I can check with Tom about his availability, but I agree. I think it is a busy night, so I can let Nick know that we have. I can let Town Administrator Milano know that we have 2 draft capital requests for one for IT, one for facilities, and then he can have that, and then we can actually vote it and have Tom come in the second meeting in November, which I think might be
Perfect.
makes sense.
a little bit more room for him to talk and have good questions asked.
Sure.
yeah.
Great. Anything else? All right, well, I will take a motion to adjourn.
Second.
Make the motion.
Second.
I'll say.
Second. All in favor?
Thank you.
Meeting adjourned. Thank you,
very much.
everyone.